Howdy, everybody. Thank you so much on attendance today. We really appreciate you guys coming out. We really want to do an event to kind of recognize the cataclysmic change that's recently happened on the African continent. And we're so happy that we could have Mr. Glen Mpani come and join us today to really give us this really important session. Before throwing it over to Priyanka, who's going to be getting us started formally, I did just want to give a quick shout out to the benefit dinner, which we're doing this Thursday. It's our annual event. You can wear African and formal attire. It's actually our 15th anniversary this year, so we're going to be looking back on kind of the impact of African alumni on this institution. And something else that we're going to be doing is actually, as usual, all the money and proceeds, the tickets you'll be buying will be going to a charitable organization. We're giving it to Project Education South Sudan. And we chose that actually because our founding president, who was a LLM in 2003, Ndubisi Obiora, is currently working as a political advisor to the UN mission in South Sudan. So he's living in Juba, South Sudan. We're taking theory to practice, so working law in Africa and taking it out there. So we want to kind of recognize his work and kind of, you plant a seed 15 years ago, and now it kind of grows into a tree that bears fruit. So that's our thinking on that. And we'd love to have you guys in attendance. That laptop right there, you can buy a ticket there, or you can use that link. That long line is a L, not a 1. Just, if you guys need any other clarifying hints on that, just hit us up. But, okay, and also this will be a recording. So everyone watching on the recording, howdy. Priyanka will take us away though.
Alright guys, so we're very lucky to have Glen with us here today. He's a democracy and governance practitioner. He's worked in various capacities in Africa for the past 15 years. His areas of interest are in representative democracy with a focus on the formation and development of political parties, local government elections, and his work over the years has exposed him to working with both state and non-state actors at various levels, national, regional, and international. He holds an honors and masters in democratic governance from the University of Cape Town, and right now he's a Mason Fellow doing his masters in public administration at the Harvard Kennedy School. So we're very lucky to have you here today, Glen, to speak to us on what's happening in Zimbabwe and what you think is going to happen.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Do you want me to stand or I should sit?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
All right. Thank you so much. I think something historic happened today. I'm a Zimbabwean. In my 15-year career, I've never done a presentation on Zimbabwe. I've done a presentation on all the other countries, and I've never done a presentation on my country. For obvious reasons, I think when you talk about your country, I think your judgment is blurred, you're too close to the situation, so you fail to be dispassionate when you're dealing with some of these issues. So this morning when I woke up, I phoned a friend of mine. I said, you know what? I was asked to talk about Zimbabwe. What should I talk about? They were laughing. I said, but why should it be so difficult? I said, no, I think it's difficult because you want to provide an objective assessment of what is happening in Zimbabwe. So I will try as much as possible to provide you with an objective assessment. But the disclaimer is that being a Zimbabwean, you cannot move away from being emotional. I think in some instances, your judgment is blurred. And I think you will try as much as possible to piece through some of that subjectivity that will come along. Right. So what are we going to, I think this is how I'm going to do it. I want it to be a discussion. And so feel free to chip in while we are talking so that at least we have a fruitful discussion. I don't just want me to share what I think about Zimbabwe, but I also want you to give me feedback. I think there are about 2 or 3 things that I'm going to talk about today. Firstly, I want us to deal with the issue. Was it a coup? Is it a coup or not a coup? I think that is very, very important because I think if we deal with that issue, and then we can be able to deal with other issues that will come in. Secondly, the issue that I want to talk about is what does it mean in relation to the democratization process that Zimbabwe has been trying to work on for the last 20 years. The third issue that I am going to deal with is the role of external partners, Britain, China, and America, and what it means going forward. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the next election. I think it is important. What is a coup? I think this is what we need to go back to the dictionary meaning of what a coup is. And I'm just going to lay it down for you. At 4 a.m. last week, the army walked into Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, and one of the army generals was on TV, and he announced that today we have taken over. The president is okay, he's safe, and his family, and we just want to ensure that we correct some of the people who have captured our president, and from now on we will drive events that are going to unfold. Right. In the constitution of Zimbabwe, and I think in many countries that you come from, I think the role of the army is it's supposed to be non-partisan. The army has to take directives from those who are in government who are civilian, and they pay their allegiance to whoever would have been elected who is the president, who should in essence direct what the army should be doing. But in this context, the army was directed by the army commander for him to be able to, for them to move in. Let's look at what their reasons were. The reasons for the army intervening was not because of a national issue or national security that they were dealing with. The army was dealing with an intra-party problem that has happened in ZANU-PF for the last 10, 15 years. ZANU-PF has been confronted with a succession problem. I think we've had one leader for the last 37 years. I always love to say I'm 40 years old. And for the last 37 years, I've known only of one executive president. The other one was there was ceremonial. And so I had sort of accepted that it's a reality that we have him as our president. So he has been confronted with dealing with succession. So internally, it was now clear and apparent that the man is now old, and either way, nature will take its course. So two factions emerged within the ruling party. One faction was called the G40, which comes from Generation 40. These are the young techs within ZANU-PF. We're now angling to say this is our moment. These individuals do not have liberation credentials. These are people who are fairly young. We're trying to disabuse those who have fought in the liberation struggle to say you don't have title deeds, you don't have entitlement for you to be able to succeed in that. The other faction was called Lacoste. Lacoste in the fact that the other candidate, Emmerson Mnangagwa, who is now the president, is known by his totem, which is called crocodile. So they just branded it to say Lacoste. So we now have two factions existing in the ruling party, Lacoste and G40. And at each and every turn, they were making efforts to try and counter each other. Before the latest coup that took place, the G40 had managed to enlist the support of the head of state because his wife was also aligned to the G40. Why was his wife aligned to G40? And I'm going to say something that might be very controversial, but I think it's very important. Grace Mugabe's interest in politics was not because she loved being in politics. I think it's very important. What Lacoste and Emmerson Mnangagwa did was that they made her feel that in the event that her husband dies, she was never going to feel secure. Her security was threatened. The only space that she knew she can be protected was in a political office. So her angling for political office had nothing to do with her as an individual to say, I want to be in politics. It was simply because she knew that they were going to make sure that they persecute her if she leaves office, if she's not in a political office. So the reality of it is that they worked together with the G40 to purge the structures. The characters in G40 are not in any way clean. I think everyone in ZANU-PF, let me put it across here. There is no honor among thieves. They are all corrupt. They have all killed people. They have all planned. And I think if you hear allegations of saying they are corrupt, they have killed people, it's all across the board. So there is nothing to say there is a better faction. But it was just this issue to say who is able to play the game better. So the G40 had managed to enlist the support of the president. We bought into it. And I think you would be naive to assume that you can place a wedge between a husband and a wife. I think it was bound to happen that Mugabe will listen to his wife. And he did that, he listened to his wife, and ultimately he deposed the vice president. When the vice president was deposed, Lacoste always had an agenda, that is Mnangagwa's faction, that once he assumes office, he will protect the interests of the war veterans and the military and the security. The moment he was removed from being vice president, it was now obvious that their ascendance to presidency is not going to happen. So their intervention, the intervention of the army, was mainly to protect their interests, that they are no longer going to get into office, so they need to protect those interests. So it's very important that we are clear with that. But what happened, unfortunately, is that the removal of Mugabe converged with the popular belief and sentiment that has always existed in Zimbabwe, that Mugabe must go. So if you would ask a Zimbabwean last week to say, is this a coup? Even a very smart Zimbabwean, they'll say, no, it's not a coup, Mugabe stayed for too long, this is okay. They would try to sanitize it because, you see, when you've got a common enemy, you all want to deal with the common enemy, and then you move to the other side. But here lies the problem. The problem of what happened last week by us not calling it a coup. SADC and the African Union, they are very clear. They don't accept military intervention or change of power through military intervention. Those who were instrumental in the coup were very clear, were very knowledgeable that they will not be able to get the support of the region. So they deliberately played their political game to get the international world to buy into it. Yes. I know there might be the British and the American. I don't want to excuse you in this because they were equally complicit in the coup. I will explain why. So what they decided to do was to say, how do we legitimize this coup? The opposition, because they've always wanted Mugabe to go, they gave solidarity messages to say, I think Mugabe should go. The greatest, what do you call it? A blunder that the opposition did was that they gave their concessions without any conditions. So on the Saturday, when there were those big mass demonstrations across the world, and even some here in Boston and whatever, people saying, yeah, no, he should go. Those demonstrations played a very good political role in favor of the coup plotters. It provided legitimacy. You provided a veneer of decency to what was an illegal activity that had taken place in Zimbabwe. What people simply did was that you legitimated a coup simply because you are looking at only one man. So fine. When there was that popular acclaim and everything, the British, the Americans say, no, I think this is just an internal matter, they should resolve it. Yes.
Sorry, because actually in this case you're assuming that it started from the military and then the people joined.
Yes.
But actually, for example, in Egypt, when we had this thing 3 years ago, it was the contrary. It was the people who were in the streets, and then I think at this point the military had to make a decision either to be with the people or to go to civil war, because this was the only way it was going to be. So I wonder how you...
This did not start with the people.
Because it's very...
This did not start with the people. This started with the military. It's an internal party issue that was exploited by other interests. So the people came to legitimate, unlike in Egypt, where the army, I was following, where the army at some point had to make a decision, are we going to shoot or this one started with the army, because they were dealing with internal factional issues. So the problem of it is that once people did that, everyone now was saying Mugabe must go. I had a number of problems with that. Firstly, Mugabe did not ruin that country in 37 years on his own. Mugabe was assisted in ruining that country with the current president now and the military. Since 2000, 2003, 2008, 2013, the opposition has failed to win any election in Zimbabwe because of a number of reasons. Rigging that has been done, led by the army, butchering and beating up people done by the same army, repressive of all the rights that Zimbabweans have been talking about. So for us to apportion blame on one individual, I think that's wrong. So once you say you want to remove an individual, you have removed a tyrant, but you have not removed the system of tyranny that he has been working with. So in essence, you don't have change. What you simply have is shifting of chains on a Titanic ship. That's basically what happened. So unfortunately, when some of us were raising these issues, I think some of you might have read my article in the New York Times. It was not sexy. I've never been attacked like that in my entire life, but I knew I was right. So when I was raising issues, I said, no, this is not real. Unfortunately, there's something about human beings. When they're doing things that they are wrong, they don't want to hear. I think there's a moment of euphoria that just say, I remember friends were saying, yes, we know we are right, but just let us enjoy. So these are well-meaning people to say, you just shut up for now. But I knew that this is not what we are looking for. So now that we have sanitized the coup, an illegal process has taken place. This guy has been sworn in. Their political party, according to the constitution, once a president leaves, political party can nominate, and then he steps in, and then he becomes president. Before going to this issue of him being sworn in as a president, I think everyone was talking about this. I even spoke about to say, perhaps he has an opportunity of him coming together and bring a government of national unity, governing together, and then there can be resources coming from the West. But guess what that march did? When people were marching, they were marching with placards celebrating the general and him as a candidate. What that process did is that it removed the importance of the opposition. Because he became the hero that has liberated Zimbabweans from the Mugabe that they so much wanted to get out of office. So in essence, the opposition became totally irrelevant, even though it was already weak and fractured. He became the icon. Then he realized that, it's actually possible that I don't even need a government of national unity. Because the British and the Americans and everyone else was now saying, we are standing here willing to help you and to give you support. What is the incentive of bringing an opposition into government? What is the incentive of coming up with a transitional government? I even assumed I was wrong, that he will not even be willing to go for an election. But he even realized that even if he goes for an election, he is going to win. And I can confirm that he will win with even more than 2/3 majority. So what has happened here now? So what has happened here is that we have had someone who went in through a military coup. He is now a president. We gave him legitimacy. He is now in office. He is going to get support from international partners. After getting support from international partners, we have a Singapore version, a China version. Economic boom, repressive of human rights, democracy at its worst. And I want to take, so I'll come to you, I want to take 2 steps back so that you understand. The economic issues thrive. The democratic side suffers. Why is Zimbabwe where it is right now? I think you need to understand. The struggle did not start on democracy and human rights issues in 2000. It started on socio-economic rights. After the IMF implemented its policies, Zimbabweans started to experience unemployment. Inflation was a problem. And when Zimbabweans started to express their views, that is when they saw that this regime is repressive. And the conversation shifted to democracy and human rights, but the main struggle was on socio-economic rights issues. So, if you look at 2013 when there was a government of national unity, Zimbabweans were happy. If you look at public opinion data, people were happy that we've got this government of national unity. So all this guy needs to do is to fix the socio-economic issues, and the governance issues will no longer be of importance. So, having said what I've said, I think one would want to, I'll move to my next question. What does it mean for the democratic implications of this? The democratic implications of this is that we are going to have ZANU-PF for as long as it takes as a government. I don't envision in my lifetime an alternation of government. I think we've renewed ZANU-PF in a very funny way. We have helped ZANU-PF renew. And unfortunately, we have helped ZANU-PF renew, but the culture, the way of governing will remain the same. Nothing is going to change. Secondly, the opposition that had played a very pivotal role, unfortunately, because they aren't strategic and they've got leadership issues, they are going to fail to be able, because tell me something, if you listen to the speech that was delivered by the president on inauguration, you would think that it's the opposition leader delivering that speech. He said everything that an opposition leader can say. Today there's a headline in Zimbabwe, MDC saying, he stole our ideas. So, because the speech, even myself, I'm usually critical on Twitter, I actually wrote, this is a good speech. And I think most of my critics says, oh my God, because it was a good speech. What do you want me to say? He gave us a good speech. He said everything that I want to listen to as a Zimbabwean. If he implements all those things, why should I not vote for him? I'm talking about myself. If he does that, why should I not vote for him in an election? In as much as I might have emotional problems with them, if they deliver, should I not vote for them? And I think my mother, who struggles in Zimbabwe to get electricity, water, and cash, if she gets electricity, if she gets water, if she gets cash, I can assure you with a low level of understanding conceptual of issues, she's going to vote for this. She even prayed on that day that, you know what, my son, nothing like this has ever happened to me. God is there. So she's praying hard because she thinks that this is the best thing that has ever happened. So I can't go in and analyze this thing for her to say, no, she doesn't want to listen. She actually thinks that I'm mad anyway. So this is what I'm trying to put to you on the table. The role of external partners. I think it's a tragedy for me to talk about this because I'm surprised with how Britain and America have dealt with this. Mainly, the African governments, I think I can excuse them. They came out and say we are not keen on it. This is something funny. At 4 a.m., the army went into the studio to announce that they have taken over. If you look at the time difference between London and Harare, it's about an hour, isn't it? At 8 a.m. on the streets of London, 2 or 3 of the major papers were already had on their headline, the dictator has been removed. I have a voice note here. And I said, one of these days I'll forward it to, I've got a voice note of a journalist. I was having a debate way before the army had gone in because the people were saying, no, a coup has taken place. And I said, no, I can't see anything. They sent me a voice note of a white journalist who was saying that he spoke to the former general, Colonel Dyke, who was there during the colonial period, the Smith regime. And he was saying that they have succeeded to do this, and this government is gone. It's a voice note that he sent. I don't know how far true it is. So for me now, connecting at the end of the day, I realized that, what? This was planned way ahead of time. They got concessions and agreements that in the event that we do this, are you going to support us or not? Whatever the reasons, for the British to be able to support this, they know why they did this. But I think on a point of principle, they should have just simply said, you know what? This is a coup. Let's allow this process to go to its logical conclusion. And I'm often asked to say, yeah, if we're not done a coup, how are we going to get rid of Mugabe? I don't think, and this is my mind, I don't think there's any excuse. The end does not justify the means. The question that I ask each and everyone who asks me that question is to say, we've got elections next year. If the candidate for the military does not win, do you think the military is going to accept? It's a very simple question that I want people to tell me. Do you think the military is going to accept? After doing so much dirty work, and then you vote him out. So the military has already set a precedent. And worse enough, those of you who read about Zimbabwe, there was a judgment that was done on the 24th by the High Court judge who said the military intervention was constitutional. I'm not a lawyer. And I think you lawyers, I don't even think that, how can in any way someone say this was constitutional? But there's a judgment that is currently there that legitimizes a coup. That judgment, in my political lenses, means that we have a precedent set. In the event that that happens next time, I assume that they can do that and they can argue to say, we did it before, what is wrong with us intervening now? And the other problematic issue is that citizens now view intervention by the army as okay. Citizens now think that it's okay for the army to come in. Those pictures that you saw, I have even pictures of my sisters standing with the army, hugging them, saying whatever. No, I look at them in this, my sister tweeted this thing, and it's very funny. People were saying, we're tired of these analysts telling us what is wrong and whatever. Then my sister said, I feel your pain. What about if one of those person is your brother? What do you do with it? And I said to her, you ask the army to do what they've done to Mugabe to do it to me. So my problem is we have created a worse problem through this. And we have assumed that an individual is our problem, rather than looking at it as a much bigger problem. So the involvement of Britain and America, for me, sets a very bad precedent. The economic interest at play, and they will come out in the next couple of months. Mining interest, business interest, very huge. They want to do, they are jostling, they are competing with China. The day that the new president was sworn in, the Africa Prime Minister, the British Minister who is responsible for Africa, jetted into Zimbabwe. On that very day, they had a meeting. I am told by colleagues that Harare is just, everyone is there because everyone wants to get a piece of it. So things are going to normalize, and the economy is we're going to have an economic boom. That I don't have any issues with. The economy is going to improve. I think some of my Zimbabwean colleagues are already planning to go to Zimbabwe. Some have already been promised positions. And this is what is going to happen. But whether you can ask me, I think this is my final comment, whether you can ask me whether this is progress or not, I think it's progress in terms of the fact that people needed relief. But in terms of what needed to be fixed in Zimbabwe, nothing was fixed. I think the problem remains, and we've created a worse problem. I don't think that we can hope for better prospects for democracy. As I'm speaking right now, this current government in office, there are stories of them beating up people because there were divisions between the army, the intelligence, and the police. There are many human rights violations that are currently happening at the military bases. So amid this euphoria, people are being beaten up, they're being arrested, because they want to make sure that everyone realigns. So they're doing that. They are arresting the other guys who are in their faction, saying they stole money. How does a general and the current president accuse the other of stealing money when we have got 15 billion that the current president and the general cannot account for diamond mining? So it's a problem. How do you say this is justice and the like? So I want it to work, but I'm very skeptical. And I just pray that something gives in. But in 4 or 5 years, what does it mean? I think we need to have a shift. It's either young people move into ZANU-PF, join the party, and provide new leadership, or a new political space starts and people get into politics. I hope at some point I will get into politics. I don't know when, but I don't think it will happen anytime soon. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's all I can say.
Okay, questions?
Hi everyone, my name is Nyakwa. Thank you so much for your very impassioned remarks and very bittersweet at the same time. I mean, I think you've partially answered some of the questions I wanted to ask. One was that it seems like what we now have is a different forest, but same trees. You know, it seems like it's ZANU entrenching itself all over again. But there also seems to be, in as much as you say that it's very dire, you know, it seems like there's an opportunity for change somewhere. And I wonder how
last year there was this flag social movement. As much as you say that this year it was the army driving, the change, and that it was the people bolstering it. But then how can we bring the people, in front during this time? Because I think this vacuum sort of creates an opportunity to sort of put in place those checks and balances that were not there when Mugabe was terrorizing the entire country. So what opportunities do we have right now to build those building blocks for change? My second question is on the last aspect that you just mentioned, of some sort of generational exit, where you have all these old people in ZANU and in the party exiting. But what needs to be put in place for young people to join these political processes? Because I think Grace Mugabe was sort of supported by a lot of young people in Zimbabwe. So within the younger ZANU generation itself, so what needs to be put in place, or how can we just seize this little opportunity for democratization or some sort of change?
I'll give you a quick answer. This flag movement, the civil society and the opposition, I want to be very open and frank with you. I think they are lost. They are lost because they could have taken advantage of this window when ZANU-PF wanted legitimacy. They could have argued to say, we can support you on this on condition that you provide us with the following. Let's say the government of national unity. Let's agree on 3 reforms that show that you are serious. They could have said, let's level the electoral field, realign all the electoral laws, let's do security sector reform, please release political prisoners that are in prison. Those 3 were things that they could have made conditional to say, we will support you, we will rally everyone around. For me, I would have been convinced that they're relevant. They gave ZANU-PF a blank check simply because they say it's better to remove one individual. And I think this is the flaw of their analysis. What is their future? Civil society and opposition space is now occupied by ZANU-PF. So where is their relevance? If ZANU-PF is now speaking the language of opposition and civil society, what then is the role of civil society? I don't understand. What are they going to be talking about? They now need to recreate and reshape their agenda. Because if ZANU-PF is not talking about democracy, what are they going to talk about? If ZANU-PF is promising free and fair elections, what are they going to talk about? They need to come up with a new campaigning base. And our tragedy has always been the commercialization of opposition politics and civil society space. With all due respect, I worked in this sector for many years. In as much as Mugabe was a tyrant and all that, he also enriched some of my colleagues and friends in the civil society. There are people who are weeping today that Mugabe is gone, because that was a money-generating project. You go to all these capitals, you ask for money to say, I want to fight Mugabe. If you arrest 1 or 2, 3 times, you become a hero, you appear on CNN, BBC, and everyone is saying, oh my God, he's a fighter, he's a hero. It became sexy to be associated with civil society and opposition. So people wanted to entrench that system. So there are both sides, they've got very dirty hands. I think civil society now, they're thinking to say, okay, fine, so what are we going to do? If this guy does not push up people towards the elections, what are we going to talk about? If the elections are free and fair, what are we going to talk about? So it's business that has also been affected. The second one, to say, moving into ZANU-PF, a new generation. And, a lot of people have said, I think the reality of it is that if you want change, you join political parties. There is no way you can inform change if you don't join political parties. It's a joke. We are joking. Power lies with political parties. They inform policy, they make decisions, and they offer candidates for political office. So if I want to influence change, I have to join political parties. But the question is, can I die to myself and join ZANU-PF? I struggle with that. I struggle that tomorrow I can be seen as part of ZANU-PF. I think you have to give me something. But you know what? That is where my lecturer in Kennedy School says to me, I'm doing a course on how to be the making of a politician. He says, once you are not in politics, you are not a politician. You have to make decisions to get in. So I might be forced at some point to think, let's say, you know what? I think all of you, if you are going to see me, you will know that, he doesn't mean it, but he wants to get in. Because opposition politics might not be what needs to happen. And that's the reality. But regeneration, we don't have the tragedy. I'm looking at all of you in this room. If I look for you 5-10 years, all of you don't want to get into political parties, and I understand why. Those things are messy. You don't want to be playing around with these old people, whatever, jumping around and whatever. You want where there's aircon, you got this course, cup of tea, you get out of the office, you write papers. That's what you want to do. Village politics is unattractive. And I have to get out of what I'm doing right now, sit under the tree. There's nothing like saying I'm coming from Harvard, you don't introduce yourself because they don't even know where Harvard is. Yeah, so you don't have to talk about your education because it makes you unattractive. My friends always say your problem, even if you come to Zimbabwe, you've been staying outside Zimbabwe for 17 years. You have to account why you have been outside Zimbabwe for 17 years. I have to account. But it's not by design that this happened. So that's how I look at it.
So I agree with you about a lot of what is precarious about the situation that we're currently in. But when you say, for example, that civil society, missed their window on last Saturday to create like some kind of conditions for ZDF and the war veterans, ZANO youth and whoever else was organizing or like helping to organize much. I kind of disagree with you. I think they didn't have the opportunity. I think they were leaderless. Even the opposition is really leaderless. And people weren't responding to them. People were responding to like this kind of social media like upwelling of people just speaking to each other and saying, yes, let's go do this. And then some people did come out of the ZDF sides, but and as much as the situation that we're in is due to ZDF and Mnangagwa's kind of like behind the scenes string pulling and like setting up this whole coup, which seems like it was planned for quite some time before it actually happened. I think it is also due to the weakness on the other side, and it's due to the values of the population. When you say that people are going to be responsive to their socioeconomic rights being accounted for, it's because right now in Zimbabwe, I think that is more important to people than democratic rights, and it has been for a long time. And to a certain extent, the people who were really impassioned about democratic rights have left, or have died, and that's the situation in the country. And I feel like that also contributes to it, even though it's a more difficult issue and more like nebulous to address. I think that's the situation that we're in. So it kind of makes me feel like we need to. But I mean, I find it very difficult to see past that. When I think about what it would have been like next year, it looked so hopeless, and it looks really scary now. But it does seem like there is a window. I mean, Zimbabweans are not interested in violence and revolution by and large, and even if there's a space where on Saturday people are on the streets, not just because they were excited, but because it was safe to be on the streets with a protest sign for the first time in a long time. And if it's safe to run for political office and you're not going to be butchered and killed, like there are the people who went for that, yes, and who like made their career on that, but there are a lot more people who stayed away because of that. Maybe we will get, even if it's not a presidential candidate, maybe we'll get some candidates for MP that have been in the private sector, have gone overseas for a long time and think, now that I'm not going to die for running for office in my country, I'm going to go back and do it. So I'm slightly more hopeful.
No, you raise fair points, and you know what, I take them. I don't have anything to say about that. I think it's fine. I think it's okay. I'll leave it like that. I think the issue of optimism, I think we are prisoners of hope. As Zimbabweans, we've always been prisoners of hope. I think we hope. I disagree that they didn't have an opportunity to negotiate. In my private space, I think I would talk to some of them, and they were not willing to listen. I think even up to now, they are very quiet because they want the president to announce cabinet. So you don't want to be seen saying nonsense, because it's also their time to eat.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Brumi. I'm coming from the education school, very different from what most people hear. But I'm curious because maybe you can help me put on your own thinking cap and decide what message what does a viable opposition look like? Because I'm worried that the very same thing that happened here in Zimbabwe happened is a running theme. For example, in Nigeria, but in a more insidious way. where there's a decimation of opposition in the place of a strong man who has come in and has brought a populist message that you can't seem to argue against. So we have Buhari who is there, and it's very hard to argue against when he was coming in fresh, when he came in, it was very hard for there to be an opposition because things had been so bad for so long that people felt that there was no alternate message. So I'm just asking you, if you were an opposition leader right now, what kind of message do you think would resonate going into the next elections?
Campaigns are not won on policies, they are won emotionally. I think that's one thing that you need to know.
Yeah.
So when you go to campaigns and say, I'm going to give you jobs, I'm going to give you water, people don't care about that. They just want you to connect with them emotionally. So if you can dance, if you come up with something that they like, that's the reality. And all these middle class people, they're not the ones that matter in an election. They don't usually vote. Research has shown that. So what platform should they run on? I honestly don't know as an opposition. I think most opposition, they are clouded with the thinking that when they offer alternative policies and whatever, it gets them votes. It doesn't. The game is about votes. So if I was in the opposition today in the movement for democratic change, what would I advise them? I think they should look at what this government is putting on the table and hold them to account. But their fortunes are now more in 2023 than in 2018. That's how I'm looking at it. And I'm saying that I don't see space for the opposition now, but in 2023. As for your country, I think Nigeria is very interesting. I don't think it's going to be very easy anytime soon to dislodge Buhari. We'll see what Atiku does.
Oh, no, it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy. I think it's going to win an election. So I think that's a reality. So and even with billions of dollars, Atiku was not going to get it. So we that's the fact that we have to deal with. Yeah.
So my question is following. So the current president was the vice president, a long time kind of right-hand man of Mugabe. So the question is why is there a sense that there's an opening when I feel as though the assumption based on other countries, you would assume that he would follow in the actions that he's already taken over the last 30-something years. Like, why would there be a shift when he comes from the same kind of system and structure and the way that things have operated in the past?
That's how I feel. I don't know why there's hope.
I think that it's not. Okay, I mean, like, Mnangagwa is like
realistic.
super scary and very corrupt, and like, you know, it's very worrying that he's uprooted. But I mean, Mugabe was not a one-man shop, fine, but he was a uniquely powerful figure. He held on to the notion of one man ruling the country for a long time, even if that wasn't completely happening behind the scenes. He played with the secession game for a long time. He really made everyone feel for almost the entire time they was there that he's the only person in charge. And I feel like, first of all, the symbolic value of him leaving and just the sense that he's not there anymore is important for people feeling engaged and feeling hopeful. And I mean, we don't know, people are still excited if they're actually going to follow up on this, but like, right, you're hearing a lot of people saying, maybe I'm going to go back, right, that have been wherever overseas for a long time, or like, maybe I'm going to get involved. But I also think Mnangagwa is more interested in the economy and the economy doing well, and he does have to do a certain number of things to establish some kind of political legitimacy to encourage foreign direct investment, because there's no money in the country. They need to have foreign investment coming in. And I think at the very least, we might have a situation next year, and I think we will, where people who are running for office are not, being arrested and beaten and killed, and like not having their families subjected to the same, not having voters subjected to the same. And I think that will encourage people to get involved, because I think a lot of people have, like, politics has been so dirty for a long time in Zimbabwe that a lot of like the sanest, most qualified people, like the best people for office, have decided, I'm going to go into academics, right? So I feel like there is a window, but
I think this is the view that most Zimbabweans give you. It's all on hope. It's change the same faith. So people have so much faith, And I think it's good to have faith, and I understand that argument, so we will live with it.
Yes.
I think I heard you correctly in that when the change occurred that surrounding African countries were say, yeah, that's not cool. But Britain and the US were somewhat believes in the legitimizing
And
of
your
the
country
process.
in South
Yeah,
Africa.
yeah.
In South Africa.
So is there anything as citizens of these other countries can do to really kind of convince the country, be like, no, that's not cool, to make the change from an external standpoint, and put pressure on the NFBF to really guarantee that when June comes, it's not, oh, we're just gonna go with what we've had in the past.
No, I
Way to
think-
influence that to include the opposition or include other people in the
I don't think he will run a bad election like in the past. He knows that he needs legitimacy.
Okay.
So he was going to stage manage a good election, which people are going to say, wow, this is a good election. Because he doesn't have a threat. You are worried about an election when you know that someone is going to vote you out of office. But if you know that you are going to win, you will run a clean election that the world is going to say democracy has come back to Zimbabwe. So that's why he came out and said, I'm going to run a free and fair election. And he's going to be the candidate, and you will win. That's it.
But as outside countries, is there anything we can do to?
I think they will come in and say this is a unique election. They are all going to be invited. Remember, Mugabe used to ban the EU, America, and he will invite all of them to say, come and see now this is a new horizon for Zimbabwe. You will win the election and everything. And even now, while he's forming his cabinet, I want to be surprised now today if he puts in a couple of individuals from opposition, just to create a semblance to say, you know what, I'm an open-minded man. He can do that. It's good politics.
Any more questions? No. Glenn, do you wanna just
Final thing.
finish off? Yeah, end off on a.
Yeah, I think, you know what, in as much as I'm pessimistic about it, I think, like I say, I might be wrong with my pessimism. And Zimbabwe might actually be, this might be the moment, like what she's saying. But the political science mind and what I was taught for many, many years, and what I've seen in other countries, like my brother there in Nigeria talking about that, like what happens in Malawi there, and all the other countries that are here, Zimbabwe would be a surprise if it takes a new turn. And only time will tell. But let's continue doing what we can, and I encourage those who might be Zimbabweans who want to go and lend their hand to do that. In about 2-3 weeks, I'm going to Zimbabwe. I'm going to be in country. A couple of my friends from class have also said they want to join me, so we are going to go in country. Because I've got very strong views, I'm preparing a schedule for them where they can make their views on their own. I'll lead them to the people that they want to meet, and then they can make their own opinion. And I'll keep doing what I've been doing, and in the fullness of time, I'll join politics in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.